where we have an update on that horrific possum burning case from several weeks back in our area. Of course, this is that video that really stirred the community, got folks very disturbed and upset and calling for answers. This was a video that was posted on Facebook showing essentially, sadly and gruesomely, a possum being burned alive. We know that somebody has been arrested in connection to this case, that person Cameron Torrance, who is being charged with instigating animal cruelty as well as fleeing and eluding and probation violation. But we are hearing from an animal advocacy group basically calling for more accountability in this case. That group is Animal Wellness Action. We have Wayne Pacelle with AWA joining us right now to talk more about this case. And Wayne, thanks so much for your time and for joining us here on Live Impact News.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So Wayne, as we kind of set the table for folks, catching them up to speed, we had this gruesome video which made the rounds on social media. Lots in the community were very, very upset, ended up reaching out to various authorities, including CMPD, North Carolina Wildlife, and you all heard about this video. You offered a $5,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest in this case. And while we've seen one of the people who is accused of being affiliated with this video arrested, this was appeared to be a multiple person video, and we have not seen any arrests yet. So what is your messaging right now?
Well, first, I just want to thank you and the entire community for really having the right emotional response to a truly horrific event. We know that malicious acts of cruelty like this are an indicator of a loss of empathy for people. And when you lose your empathy, this one strike against this really innocent animal is just the first act of cruelty that the set of people involved will perpetrate. And it may not stop with animals. There is such literature in sociology about acts of animal cruelty leading to other malicious acts of cruelty. We see when there's animal cruelty, there's domestic violence in the household. We know that the profile from the FBI of a serial killer is early age acts of animal cruelty. We let these people go unpunished, we're going to see other terrible acts that they mete out in society. The data is there. It happens over and over again. So arresting one person, fine. The charges should be stronger against that individual, but we have at least two other people who are involved. We've got to have arrests. We've got to have justice for the safety of the community. I mean, this poor possum is really just an indicator of what these people are capable of, and that's why I think you've had such a community reaction. People get it. People know that animal cruelty is tied to acts of human violence as well.
If I could touch on that matter for just a moment for our viewers here on Live Impact News. We actually, just a couple months ago, did a 1-hour special about the link between violence against animals and violence against people. And for folks who want to watch that on demand, you can actually find that here on WCNC Plus. It's under the shows section, in the in-depth section of the shows section. So that remains up there if folks want to educate themselves a bit more about that relationship and some of the studies that lay that relationship out. But Wayne, we heard you talk about the fact that there need to be stronger punishments too, not just charges, but stronger charges. And we've covered here on WCNC Plus an ongoing push in various forms to try to bring stronger animal cruelty punishments, whether it's on the dog fighting front or it's just animal cruelty of a general nature, you know, owners mistreating their animals at home. What can you say as far as federal laws, state laws, local laws, and the roles that those play, and if there are any changes that need to be made, if any, to better protect animals?
Well, I've been working for many years, and one campaign that I've worked on is to make sure that we have felony level penalties for malicious acts of cruelty in all 50 states, and that includes North Carolina. So North Carolina does have felony penalties for the worst acts of cruelty. We also have a national anti-cruelty law. It's called the Preventing Animal Cruelty and Torture Act, which I worked to help pass in 2019. President Trump signed that legislation, which was unanimously passed by Democrats and Republicans. We now have a very important bill in Congress called the Animal Cruelty Enforcement Act, the ACE Act. It's H.R. 1477 in the U.S. House of Representatives. A Senate companion bill will be introduced soon. This will create a designated unit at the U.S. Department of Justice, a prosecutor's unit, to bring cases of animal cruelty for precisely the reasons that you said, and precisely the reasons that WCNC TV did its 1-hour report on the link between animal cruelty and human violence. We need capacity from law enforcement to address these problems. And we know that these are not just trifling little matters. I mean, when you think about these people setting an opossum on fire, 2 of the 3 indicators of a serial killer's behavior that forecasts these later, more malevolent and larger scale acts of cruelty are animal cruelty and fire setting. We saw 2 of the 3 in evidence in a single act. What more do we need than that? So the ACE Act is very important. I hope that Senators Budd and Tillis co-sponsor the Senate bill when it's introduced. I hope all 14 members of the North Carolina U.S. House delegation co-sponsor this bill. We need prosecutors and we need policing to address these crimes. If you allow these people to go unattended, if there's no enforcement action against them, we will see their violent instincts graduate. It'll be other animals, it'll be cats, it'll be dogs, it'll be horses. We will see it in terms of the home setting. We'll see domestic violence. We'll see them strike out at people who are innocent just for the thrill of it. And because they've just lost their empathy, it's like nothing to people who've lost their empathy. So we've got to treat this seriously. The ACE Act is very important. We also have a bill called the Fight Act to strengthen our laws against dog fighting and cockfighting. There was a bill introduced in the North Carolina legislature this year to increase penalties for and prohibitions for cockfighting. That bill appears to be languishing, and that's unfortunate because there's nothing more intentional than staged animal fighting. When you're staging fights between dogs, you're putting knives or curved ice picks on the legs of roosters and having them thrash each other, stab each other, and slash each other to death as people watch, and they're amused by this. Anyone who's amused by these savage acts of cruelty has an emotional and psychological problem, and that problem needs to be addressed.
Well, and to further talk about the dog fighting issue and the cockfighting issue, I mean, we've spoken time and time again with law enforcement who have told us that usually this also, in addition to the cruelty and the gruesomeness of the actions that, it ropes these animals into, it also usually goes hand in hand, we see, with either human trafficking or, drug activity or, trafficking in illegal firearms. This is all according to law enforcement. And you pointed out, a dogfighting bill in North Carolina that seems to be languishing, in your words, and we followed introductions of bills over recent years that pertain to stronger, penalties against dogfighting, and sometimes we see these fail to get out of committee. So I guess what is your messaging to folks watching at home who feel like, they're watching this and they feel like that's unacceptable?
There's never been a politician who's benefited by being on the side of the dogfighters and the cockfighters. They need to wake up as lawmakers and understand that the American public and North Carolinians specifically despise and detest and loathe staged animal fighting. But these lawmakers need to be reminded by their constituents. So, I urge people to go to our website, animalwellnessaction.org. You can get information on all of these bills, and you can write to your lawmakers, your state lawmakers in Raleigh, your state senator, your state rep, your U.S. lawmakers, your 2 U.S. senators, and your U.S. rep in the Congress. We've got active bills to address these problems right now. It's only passive, response to these circumstances that allows these bills to languish. If the public speaks its voice, and if people are aware of this, it's a slam dunk. Very few people in our society think animal cruelty is a trifling matter any longer. We understand the gravity of it, not just for the animal, the suffering of an animal who didn't deserve to be tormented and tortured and killed just for someone's thrill or just because they were bored. But we know it's such a much larger issue. Our partner on the Fight Act in the Congress is the National Sheriff's Association. We've got sheriffs throughout North Carolina that have endorsed this legislation. We've got the National District Attorneys Association, all 3,000 elected DAs who support this because these professional law enforcement people see what happens. They see that people who do terrible things to animals are people who are a threat to the safety of our communities in general. So people just need to get past this idea that, oh, it's just an animal. I mean, fortunately, not many people think that way. We have to understand that it's all connected. When you raid a dogfight or a cockfight, you are netting a whole set of career criminals. Illegal immigration, human trafficking, narcotics trafficking, illegal gambling, illegal firearms possession, all of it you see at these animal fights. It's the cartels are involved, the gangs are involved. That is the set of people who are involved in animal fighting activities.
And I mean, you mentioned some of the support for current legislation, including the National Sheriff's Association. If I remember correctly, this was an organization that actually pushed the FBI to start collecting data, if it could, on animal cruelty and animal abuse cases. And from what I understand, just by doing some lighter research, it seems like this is largely voluntary, so agencies would elect to put their information in a database. But this was an effort to try to gain a bit better perspective on the scope of animal cruelty nationwide and also its potential links to other crimes. I am curious about this ACE Act that you mentioned on the federal level. Would that go hand in hand at all with this FBI database? Because it seems like it is kind of getting DOJ involved with the matter of animal cruelty.
Well, you're very perceptive on all of this. Tomorrow, we're working with Representative Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, Democrat, and Nicole Malliotakis, a Republican from New York, from Staten Island, on the FBI ACE Act. This is going to be an FBI Animal Cruelty Task Force Act. So this is going to match the ACE Act, which is the prosecutor's bill. That's H.R. 1477 in the House. That would create a dedicated set of prosecutors to basically prosecute animal cruelty crimes. But as we know from the little ditty on Law and Order, law enforcement is comprised of the police and the prosecutors. You need both to make a case. So that's why we're working to create an FBI task force on animal cruelty with special agents devoted to animal cruelty crimes. Again, not just because animal cruelty is a vice and it's awful and it's immoral, but because we know that people who are involved in this are going to be involved in other crimes. When you want to stop crime in the community, go after the people hurting animals. So we're going to have parallel bills in Congress, one for the police, one for the prosecutors, both at the Department of Justice. The good news is that the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has a long history of involvement to stop animal cruelty. When she was Attorney General of Florida, she was extremely active with us and with animal protection work in general. She has already signaled some great sympathy for creating an animal cruelty crime section at the Department of Justice. Kash Patel, the new FBI director, when a major dogfighting bust happened recently in Oklahoma, he made it a point to include a quote from him saying, the FBI is not going to tolerate animal cruelty because we understand the link between animal cruelty and human violence. So wherever you are politically, whether you're left or right, we must as a country have a collaborative approach. Democrats and Republicans must come together on a universal value that animal cruelty is a vice. It's a threat to the safety of our community. And I think with General Bondi and with Director Patel, we have an opportunity because they're both sympathizers with this cause of stopping malicious animal cruelty, as every decent person should be. But sometimes people put this aside thinking, oh, there's more important stuff to do than this. No, the reality is this is about as important as it gets because it's violent crime. We're basically these people are throwing up a red flag and waving it. I'm a danger to the community. I just set an opossum on fire. If anyone thinks they're going to stop at that, they are very naive and they're very unfamiliar with the detailed literature on this topic. So, again, my hat's off to you and the station for throwing a spotlight on this problem. We have very practical, strategic, legislative maneuvers that we're making right now, but we need North Carolinians to join us in this effort. I mean, the federal delegation is poorly represented right now on these important animal protection, anti-cruelty bills, and they need to do better.
If I could pivot back to the possum case, I did reach out to NC Wildlife just a few days ago, and I received a reply back just to see if this case was still active. Was it still ongoing? Did we feel like, they did one arrest and they're done? We did hear back, and it sounds like the case is still active and ongoing. Unfortunately, no big updates we heard from NC Wildlife, but they did say that there are some, they made it sound like there were some investigative concerns that they were still trying to work on. So all's to say, this is still going on. I feel like folks could probably still give tips if needed. We've publicized that tip hotline. Have you heard anything from authorities, on your side as you've been in touch with them, whether it's regarding the reward, the $5,000 reward that we mentioned before, or the investigation as it stands right now?
No, unfortunately not, and we're disappointed in NC Wildlife's response thus far. I mean, we want more action. We want this to be treated as a matter of urgency, because it is a matter of urgency. If people are at large who are capable of this, they're a threat to our communities, period. And NC Wildlife, really is involved in a lot of other things and a lot of conservation-related activities and hunting seasons and the like. This may not be their bailiwick, and I hope they're getting a quick education, but county sheriffs and DAs also need to be involved in this. And that's where most of the policing and the prosecuting work is done on animal cruelty cases. State wildlife agencies have not been in the forefront of this. They don't seem to have a lot of experience. So let's hope that if the handoff was made here to that state agency, they understand the importance of this and they understand how to execute on this issue. Policing and prosecuting on animal cruelty crimes is an important area, and it requires some level of expertise. And what appears to us to be a very slow roll on this is disappointing, and that's why we're keeping the pressure on.
All right. Wayne Pacelle with Animal Wellness Action, thank you again so much for your time. Anything you want to leave our viewers with before we say goodbye?
Please join us at animalwellnessaction.org to build the body of law and to light, a spark to address this problem in our society. It's so important.
All right. Thank you for your time again. Come and visit us anytime on Live Impact News. And of course, folks at home, we'll keep you posted as we dig into this topic much more. And of course, we'll keep a big eye on this case as well. Wayne, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.